Good afternoon, everyone. It's our pleasure to welcome once again this afternoon Len Campanaro. And today I again, earlier had to say, now Dan, I think you and Len met through Experience Inc., didn't you? And I think that's where they met. But what a bonus, because this is the third time now that Len has been with us. And he is booked to come back to us again. So I think we'll all be delighted today to learn about apes, orangutans, gorillas, and an animal I've never heard of called bonobos. So welcome, Len. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me back. You're probably wondering where in the world we are. Well, we are looking at a rainforest, an equatorial rainforest, and that's where we're going to meet three animals today. Now, the green here on this map of the world reflects where the rainforests are in the world. And two of the animals we're going to meet are going to be in Africa, on the west portion of Africa along the equator, sort of in this region right in here. And then we're going to go a little inland and we're going to meet another, the bonobo that nobody seems to know. Hopefully we'll know a lot about them afterward. And then, but before we get into Africa, we're going to start out with orangutans. Orangutans, well, they used to cover all of Southeast Asia. Regrettably, are only found in two places of Indonesia, the northern part of the island of Sumatra, and then here in Borneo. So we've set the stage, and we're going to get intimate with three of the four great apes, orangutans, gorillas, and the bottom picture there, a bonobo. Before we delve into the individual animals, let's put some background perspective on this. The primates of the animal kingdom, you can divide them up in basically four families. And if you think about it like a ladder, we'll say the top rung of the ladder are the most intelligent and most capable. And there we have apes. The next rung down, we're going to have monkeys. Below them, we're going to have tarsiers. Anybody here know what a tarsier is? You're not typically going to find them in zoos. They're nocturnal, and they're very, very small. So if you went to the zoo had them, you'd never see them anyhow. And then we have prosimians. And you'll be surprised who are prosimians. But prosimian means pre-monkey. They're on the very bottom of the ladder. Is my podium, by the way, in the way of anybody seeing on this side of the room? Are you okay? You're okay? Okay, good. So prosimians, there are roughly 150 species. 99 of them are lemurs. Yeah, there's 99 species of lemurs. Many people think lemurs are monkeys. They're not. They're prosimians. They have a tail. They're nocturnal animals, so they have reflective eyes, just like a cat. They're the only primates that have a wet nose. So that tells you the sense of smell is very important to them, like a dog, because a wet nose actually helps gather molecules of scent in the air much better than a dry nose. Tarsiers, there's 8 species of those. They come from Southeast Asia. Likewise, tail, nocturnal, with reflective eyes. Now we're starting to make a transition towards the higher ranks. They have a dry nose, okay? Legs are longer than arms, okay? Humans, arms are longer than legs. In these two lower species, legs are longer than arms. They only weigh 3 to 5 ounces. They're really small. I'm going to show you pictures in a few moments. And while the rest of us all turn our heads basically 90 degrees left or right, they turned them left and right 180 degrees. Okay? Almost like a bird. Next level up, we have monkeys. There are some 300 species of monkeys. They too have a tail. Now we've got another change. The change is that they're active in the daytime. They're diurnal. So they don't need reflective eyes. They have a dry nose. Now we start to see arms longer than legs, or at least they're the same length. And they're capable of many more complex behaviors than the lower species. And at the top of the ladder, in the animal kingdom, we have 6 apes. 4 of them are called great apes, and 2 of them are called lesser apes. And they do not have tails. That's a distinguishing feature. Likewise, they are most active in the daytime, no reflective eyes, dry nose, and like humans, their arms are longer than their legs, and they have a hairless face. So let's see what a picture of some of these animals look like. So over on the right, we have prosimians, and the 2 most rightmost pictures are 2 lemurs. Up at the top are cockerels the fox. You'll find those at the St. Louis Zoo. Down below, we have blue-eyed blacks. Don't have these at the St. Louis Zoo. It's the only primate that has blue eyes besides human beings. Okay? The boys are black, the girls are redheads. They are from Madagascar. It's the only place in the world you find lemurs. There are no other primates on Madagascar. And then in the southern part of Africa, we have 2 more prosimians, species known as loris and bush babies, and they're rather on the small side. Typically don't find those in zoos either. Then over in Southeast Asia, we have our tarsiers, and here's pictures of 2 different species. Lesser apes, you're probably most familiar with gibbons, okay? A lot of zoos have them. St. Louis doesn't have them currently. This picture, the female is the blonde. The male has black fur. There's about 15 or so species of gibbons. And then cousins to gibbons are siamangs. Siamangs are a bit bigger. Both are black. That distinguish the male from the female. The male has a little tuft of black hair down towards his rump. And they're slightly bigger than gibbons. Both of these, gibbons are siamangs. Lesser apes come from Asia. There's none in Africa. They come from Asia. So the great apes of the animal kingdom, what we're going to get into today. We're going to talk about 3 of these 4. From Africa, gorillas. They're actually very gentle giants. Hollywood gives them a bad name. They really only get violent when they feel threatened or their family is threatened. Chimpanzees, they're socially very, very political. When it comes to food, it's every man for himself, unless I'm trying to get you to vote for me to keep me in power. Okay? Then if I've killed an animal of some sort, I'll share some of that with you. Or I'll scratch your back and clean your fur. They're actually the meanest of all apes. They actually get into gang wars. And if you lose, you're likely to get killed, and if you get killed, you're likely to get eaten by the victors. So, and then we have bonobos, known as the forgotten ape. They were a long time confused with chimpanzees. Scientists actually thought that they were pygmy chimpanzees until the mid-1930s. And they're the smartest of all apes, and we'll talk about that. And to prove that they're the smartest, like human beings, bonobos, the females are in charge. So that demonstrates they're the smartest of all the African apes. Now, the oldest ape species amongst the great apes is the orangutan. And they are actually the most mild-mannered of all apes, and they're actually the smartest of all animals. They're far smarter than chimps and dolphins and other animals you can think of. They are actually abstract thinkers, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So let's get into it, and we're going to start with this handsome fellow right here, the orangutan, and then we're going to move to gorillas and bonobos. When I ask kids at the zoo, do you know what the word orangutan means? They usually tell me orange. Okay, that's what comes through their mind. But the word actually is from ancient Malayan language. These animals are very smart, and the ancient Malayans thought that these beings that were in the forest were actually people who would displease the ancient gods, and the ancient gods condemned them to live their lives in the forest. Historically, and I'll talk about some of the things they do in a few moments, historically they were all over Southeast Asia. Now they live just on 2 islands of Sumatra in a rather fragmented sections of these 2 islands. From Sumatra, in the green splotch you have towards the northern end of the island there, we have known as the Sumatran orangutan. There's about roughly 14,000 of those. On the island of Borneo, scattered around the island, about 80,000 Bornean orangutans. These 2 species you'd probably find in zoos. And then discovered in the last 25 years in an isolated mountain area, the Tapanuli, in that small white block there, in a very isolated area of Sumatra. And then amongst zoos, roughly about 250 around the globe. The orangutan we have on the left here is what they look like from Borneo, in the center from Sumatra, and on the far right there then the Tapanuli. And you can see similarities but very distinctive differences. And it's not just looks. When science declares animals as species, it's based on genetics. So they're the largest tree-dwelling mammal. They infrequently descend from the trees, and the reason is on the ground they're having to deal with Sumatran leopards. They have to deal with clouded leopards, crocodiles, boas. So they tend to stay very high up in the trees. They're born in a tree, they live all their lives in trees, and they sleep in trees. The tree provides them their food. Their diet basically is 60% fruit. And then they'll also eat leaves, bark, seeds, some insects, and they've got a real sweet spot for honey. They'll get their water from vegetation. The tree, besides providing them food, also is their refuge from all those predators that I just mentioned. And you can see they have a rather long arm span. It's 2 times their body length, and it's 7 feet across. So my arms would need to be another 6 inches on either side, if you want to try to visualize that. Now, because they live in trees, they basically have 2 sets of hands, okay? The top picture there that you're looking at is an orangutan hand. It would appear like a normal hand, long fingers, an opposable thumb. But the lower picture, look at that. If I didn't tell you it was a foot, you would immediately think it was just another hand. And it's actually, look how long those toes are, how long those toes are. The big toe works just like an opposable thumb, okay? When we think about walking on our feet, okay, we think in terms of, the sole of the foot is down to the ground, the leg is in a vertical plane. Not for an orangutan. The normal setup of the leg is it's oriented to be in a horizontal plane, and in that horizontal plane, like my hand is here, the sole of the foot is facing sideways. And if you spend all your time in trees, okay, the reason for that is as you're swinging through the trees, if suddenly you needed to grab onto a vine because maybe one vine with your hand broke, it's right in position to immediately grab onto another vine, grab onto a tree trunk, and so forth. So when they are down on the ground in those very rare circumstances, they can't walk on the palm of the sole of the foot. They walk on the side of the foot. And I'm going to put the mic down for a second and show you what that would look like. So imagine my arm here is actually a leg. Okay, I'd have my foot curled, and I would walk like that. That's how I would walk, okay? And I can't be walking on all fours, but I'd be walking on the side of my foot. Also, if they're not using it to grab on to something, they're going to carry their food in their hands and their tools in their hands. These animals are known as tool users. When you look at an orangutan, and I asked children, I said, do you think red would be a good color if you lived up in a tree? It's camouflage, and oh, no. Well, it's a perfect color for living up in a tree. You see, predators typically do not have good color vision. That leopard on the ground or that tiger on the ground, he's basically seeing, for the most part, black, whites, grays, maybe a little bit of color, but not the full color spectrum. So if you're an orangutan and you're living high up in the forest canopy of a rainforest, the canopy is very dark, the shadows in them. You blend in, that red fur blends in very, very well with those, with that dark canopy, particularly if someone looking for you doesn't have good color vision. In fact, when scientists first started to study orangutans, it took them 6 months to know what to look for, to find them in the trees, because they hide so well. Now, their gestation is very close to humans. It's 8.5 months. Birth weight is 2 to 3 pounds. They have the longest childhood of any species on Earth other than human beings. Their childhood lasts about 8 years. And while they nurse 4 to 7 years, when they get past that first year, it's more or less comfort nursing, okay? You have such a long childhood because mom has a lot to teach you about growing up in a rainforest. She teaches you how to identify about 400 different kinds of foods, how to know whether the food is ripe or not. If the food has a hard husk or a thorny husk, how do you break into it and not get hurt with it? If you're sick, what you should eat to make yourself better. They live in trees. They sleep in nests in trees. They never sleep in the same nest 2 nights in a row. So they are actually the healthiest of all animal primates because a nest, parasites build up. So they're not susceptible to parasites that build up in the bedding. They can weave a nest in a tree in about 10 minutes. And if it's going to be a rainy night, they're going to weave a roof over them because they live in rainforest and they hate getting rained on. Okay, they'll even use umbrellas, and I'll show you a picture in a little bit. Life expectancy in the wild is the 40s. In managed care, it's the 50s, okay? Sometimes pushing about almost 60. At the St. Louis Zoo, you'll see these. There is 1 male, 3 adult females, and a youngster by the name of Forrest, who's about 7 months old and cute as can be. Okay, size-wise, there's a lot of dimorphism with these. The alpha male, he is twice that size of females and non-alpha males. His weight is going to be typically 2 to 250 pounds. And we have that in the upper picture there. The bottom picture, I can't tell you whether that's a boy or a girl because non-alpha boys look just like girls. And what this does is it keeps peace in the forest in the orangutan world because the girls are only interested in breeding with the guy with long hair. So you guys out there, don't run off and get a haircut. Let your hair grow out, okay? They live in sort of a semi-solitary existence. It's sort of a very loose grouping. It is not called a troop. You think of monkeys and chimpanzees and gorillas, and we call them a troop. They have their own name. It's called a congress. And I always feel bad for them because they are far smarter than the guys in Washington. They typically are going to congregate in areas where there's food. You know, if they can find a fruit tree, they're going to sleep right near it. Except if you're a female with a youngster, then you sleep as far away from the fruit tree as you can. Because predators know That's where orangutans are. They're ready for breakfast. So, they go to sleep near fruit trees. So that's where they're going to hang out. So mom of the baby is going to stay away. Now, if another alpha comes into the general area, they are going to bitterly fight over controlling that area and being able to breed with those females. And oftentimes you may see pictures of orangutans with large gashes in their facial flanks. And it's a good chance somebody can be missing a couple fingers and be lucky they didn't get killed. But what happens in a group of orangutans, you only have one alpha. Now, if, say, the alpha died of natural causes, okay, one of the other males, one of the other non-alpha males, hormones kick in. And I haven't read anything on scientists saying that how this is figured out, but it just happens with one, where hormones kick in, they quickly gain weight, their facial phalanx and throat sac grows out, and their hair gets long, and they become then the new alpha that the females want to breed with. So not only being one of the smartest animals, or the smartest animals, but they're one of the few empathetic wild animals. Other wild animals that are empathetic are elephants, dolphins, bonobos, who we're going to talk about, and these. They're actually abstract reflective thinkers. They do not have to see somebody do something to do it. If they've got a problem, they will just sit down and stare at the problem. And then they may stare for a couple of hours. And then they will suddenly get up and they'll go solve the problem. And if they figured that they needed some tools, they'll go make the tools that they need and use it in a logical sequence. And to give you some simple examples, if an orangutan, they love honey, sees a beehive, he's going to get himself 2 tools. He's going to go get a stout stick and he's going to put a point on it. And he's going to go get a large palm branch. And he's going to plunge the stick into the hive and then have the palm branch to beat off the bees. And with all that fur on there, they're not getting through that. He just really has to protect his face. Another example, the picture we have down here, a female orangutan with a termite mound. And this is a picture out of a zoo, but you'd see the same thing in the wild. They love termites, okay? It's the insect that they like. They love termites. And if they see a termite mound, big, strong male, by the way, guys, his strength is 7 times yours, okay? When you were at the top of your fitness. 7 times yours. So he will simply take a section of that termite mound, maybe break off the top, and just eat the termites, like he's eating ice cream out of an ice cream cone. So if you can't do that, what you may do is with one stick, make a hole into the side of the mound, and then you'll get yourself another thin branch and leave 1 or 2 leaves at the end, and you'll stick it down that hole and pull it back out full of termites on the stick and on the leaves, and you'll enjoy your treat. But they've been known to use as many as 5 tools in a logical sequence. Apes cannot swim. So if they have to cross a river, okay, they can't swing across with the trees, and they need to move to the other side, they're afraid of crocs in the water. So what they'll do is get themselves a large stick and they'll poke the water. They're checking 2 things. 1, are there any crocs there? And 2, what's the depth of the water? Can I safely wade across because I can't swim? And if it's too far to go across, they are known to steal canoes from human beings. And they can untie any knot that any sailor or Boy Scout can tie, so you better have a strong chain. And they'll simply use, having seen humans do it, they'll simply use the canoe paddles and paddle themselves ably across the river. Oh, and finally, in the lower corner there, I almost missed it. It's daytime, it's raining, I don't want to get rained on. I found myself a great big leaf and I'm going to use it as an umbrella. Communication a number of ways: gestures, facial expressions, 18 different vocalizations. They're most famously known for what is called the long call, and that's when the guy's looking for a girlfriend. And it's a long hoo call, very, very loud, can be heard well throughout the jungle, and he's calling to see if there's any females that are in estrus that want to breed. They'll use a kiss squeak to express excitement or fear. They're annoyed, a little grumph. If you're going to call the kids, sort of a throat scrape sound. So so you understand them a little better, I decided to give you examples of 3 animals that were at the San Diego Zoo. This is Satu. Satu is 250-pound giant, very empathetic, very mild-mannered, and very patient. So you can see his size there, and he just has such a beautiful, deep face. It was one hot day in August, and Satu, very comfortable on the ground, but his mate, Inda, was not. Instinctually, she stays high in the climbing structures and will only come down to the ground briefly to grab some food at feeding times and then quickly run back up. It's a hot day in August. She is 5 to 6 months pregnant, and where she's sitting, there is no shade. So she has her hands over her head trying to give herself shade, like this. Okay. Satu's on the ground, and he's playing with the cardboard box. And he suddenly notices her up there. And he takes the box, and he tears it in 2, and he climbs up, and he gives her half of it to use as a sun parasol. Okay? Very mild-mannered. The Siamangs in San Diego live in the same habitat as the orangutans. They live together in the wild, so the zoo has them together there. You'll see instances of this in St. Louis as well with other species. And very patient. Anyhow, Inda gives birth. About a year later, one of the Siamang female gives birth. And so we got 2 little girls, and they become best of girlfriends. And one of the things they love doing is climbing on Satu and swinging from his long hair. And he just sits there and with that same expression, it's like they're kids being kids, and very, very patient with them. Even though, the other one is another species. This is Janie. Now notice the difference in shading of Janie's hair color versus Satu. Satu is Sumatran, Janie was from Borneo, and her hair is coarser and it's a darker coloration. We have Sumatran here in St. Louis. Janie was really a girly girl. Janie was born in the wild, unlike Satu was born in a zoo. Janie was born in the wild, and she had been acquired by a family in London and lived the first 11 years of her life in a London flat, until she became too big and too strong for the family to manage. So they decided to donate her to the zoo. Now, Janie was an artist, a deal maker, and a teacher. And one of the things she liked to do was draw. And the zoo would give her watercolors and chalk. And before she started drawing, the first thing she did was her lips and her nails. She did her lips and her nails, then did her abstract artwork, which the zoo sold for a lot of money. Janie, because she was used to people, when people would visit, she would be always down by the window where people were. She particularly liked looking inside of ladies' purses. If she saw a lipstick or like chapstick, she would want to trade for it. And she'd go in the habitat and find something, and she'd throw it up over the glass, and she was really good at getting it to the person she wanted it to. And then she wanted the woman to throw the lipstick back over to her. And we'd have to say, no, you can't do that, because common ordinary germs on things we have that don't affect us are deadly to them. They don't have the same immunities. And Janie would get mad, and she'd go and find some scat, and she'd throw it over the window so you had to get out. Anyhow. And, she's very much the teacher. She was the oldest of the orangutans in the Congress there. And all the animals are taught animal husbandry, behaviors to do to make it easier for the vets and the vet techs to examine you, take care of you, like blood draws, inoculations, checking blood pressure, opening your mouth so the dentist can see. And she would demonstrate for the younger ones and made it a lot easier for the keepers to do the training that he needed to do because she simply demonstrated. She would do it first and show everybody else. And then Ken Allen, affectionately called Harry Houdini, excuse me. And he was a survivor, abstract thinker, and escape artist. And Ken is named for two keepers by the name of Ken and Allen, and they had rescued him when he was very young. And he grew up in the zoo's nursery with other baby animals. And being as smart as they are and as mild-mannered as they are, Ken had the run of the nursery during the daytime. And he liked going to their different cages and just watching the other animals. At night, to keep Ken safe, they would put him in a cage, close up the cage, latch the cage, and they would take off. Unbeknownst to the keepers for a long time, Ken would disassemble the cage from the inside out, okay, and play around during the evening. Animals tell time by light, so he knew about when the keepers were going to come back. He'd reassemble the cage and climb back inside. Now, when he graduated from that and then went into the habitat and became the big, strong guy he was constantly finding ways to get out of the habitat. He'd find a way, the zoo would fix it. He'd find another way, the zoo would fix it. And no matter what they did, he always came up. They even got an escape artist to examine and look at it and so forth. And he wasn't looking to get out of the zoo. What he would do is he'd get out of the habitat and he would just simply go walking down one of the pathways to go visit an animal and sit down there and look, and there's guests around, and here's this orangutan walking past you because he's on his mission. He wants to go see something. And, the keepers would see him and grab him and, come on, Ken, let's go on back. The International Union for the Conservation of Nature classifies all three species of orangutans as critically endangered. Their main predators are humans. The biggest problem is habitat loss, slash and burn of the forest. Why? We're cutting the forest, that's to plant palm oil trees. Palm trees that are used for production of palm oil are not native to Asia, they're native of Africa. But they grow well in Asia. And they'll just literally clear cut or burn. In fact, back about 10 years ago, the burning was so out of control that there was huge plumes of smoke that swirled the southern hemisphere of the earth. It's a lot better than it was, but it's still a big problem. About 80% of the forest cutting in Indonesia is being done illegally. The orangutans won't leave the trees when they're being cut. It's my home. The tree falls. Oftentimes the orangutan is killed. If the orangutan has a baby and is not killed, the lumberjacks will club the mother to death, and they'll steal the baby and sell the baby into the illegal pet trade for $50,000. Baby gets too big to handle. The family that has the baby, okay, because it's a youngster now, they take it to the butcher shop. Okay, but there's hope with help from all of us. Rehab sanctuaries have been created. Programs to find illegally taken orangutans are brought to these rehab facilities. Basically, the baby orangutans are going to school for 8 to 10 years. Mom was doing it for 8 years with you. Now you've got a human, local women in the communities will spend their days sitting up in trees teaching baby orangutans how to be orangutans, so that one day when they demonstrated enough skills, they can be released back into the wild. They do it in like 2 steps. They put them sort of in a halfway house situation where maybe they're on an island with food if they can't find regular food on themselves, but eventually they figure out, exactly, I do this on my own. And then when they've sufficiently demonstrated that, they release them completely. And maybe for the first couple days, they stay close, and then after that, they disappear. And they might not be seen for years. Then all of a sudden, years later, they appear back to where they went to school. They stay for a few days, and then they're gone again. And you see some pictures here of just that going on. These facilities are actually supported by zoos, accredited zoos around the world, including the St. Louis Zoo. Organization to stop illegal palm oil is the Palm Oil Roundtable, which is a collection of governments, non-governmental organizations, zoos, and a number of rather large companies pledging not to take the trees from where the animals are in danger and to harvest trees sustainably. And you can look for the symbol on the bottom corner there for sustainable palm oil, or you can download the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo app, and there from that there's a scan section. So if you're in the store and you're buying products, you can check and see if the product contains legal or illegal palm oil. You find palm oil, we don't even realize it. It's in thousands of products. It's in thousands of products we eat. It's in makeup. It's in all sorts of things. So, the zoos not only funding sanctuaries, they fund field conservationists and scientists to do their work. They provide education in the local communities, and they support community-led programs like the one here training the baby orangutans. So definitely support our zoo. My favorite reads in this area, one among the orangutans, the Barut Galdikas story. Dr. Galdikas is to orangutans what Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall, can't forget Jane Goodall, what Jane Goodall are to chimpanzees and mountain gorillas. In fact, all three women worked and studied under Dr. Louis Leakey. And Dr. Leakey had a theory that, so the three women went into the wild to study these animals. Nobody had studied them. And he had a theory that women could do a better job than men because they would be less intimidating to the apes. And all three women were very successful. The other book, Orangutans, The Wizard of the Rainforest, a very interesting, Dr. Anne Russo. She is with the University of Toronto, so I highly recommend those two books. Moving on to gorillas. There's 4 subspecies of the gorillas, and maybe 5. Western lowland gorillas, and on the map you see that red splotch, and there's under 150,000 of those. Eastern lowland gorillas, more towards the center of the African continent, are in a rather lawless section of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and there's less than 5,000. Then the mountain gorillas of Diane Fossey fame, the blue, in the mountains of Uganda and Rwanda, about 900. The Cross River gorilla, at the headwaters of the Cross River, there's little yellow splotches. I don't know if you can see them or not. They're up here. And there's less than 300 of those. And then less than 20, maybe a little over 20 years ago, in the Igbo forest, remote area to the north of that red spot, 3 troops of gorillas, rather unique, being designated the Igbo gorilla. They're still being considered whether to classify them as a separate subspecies. Only 25 in total, divvied up over 3 troops. Now, when it comes to physical attributes, they're the largest primate. Males typically are 400 pounds, the mountain gorillas are 600 pounds. And the females in those different subspecies are half the size of the males. Males typically have gray-brown hair. The westerns are distinguished. I don't know if you can see that, but they have on their forehead here, and you'll see this if you went to the zoo, right here, it's sort of reddish-brown hair, and that's unique to the western lowland. because otherwise they look very similar to the eastern in particular. Noses for gorillas are unique as fingerprints. And when scientists are studying them in the forest, they draw a picture of the nose. And that's how, from day to day, they know if they're looking at the same gorilla or not. Teeth for all the primates, all the apes, I should say, are going to be the same setup as humans, 32 teeth. The gorillas, their skin is black, hands and feet similar to humans. They knuckle walk, okay? And they're doing that because all of that upper body weight, okay? So they primarily knuckle walk. You'll see them walking on their hind legs, basically if they're getting ready for a confrontation. And as I said before, apes can't swim. Now, basically, there's two types of troops. So let me talk about that, and let me explain how you transition from one to the other. Family troops usually have 5 to 30 individuals. Years ago, when gorilla populations were much higher than they are today, you had these large troops with 30. In modern times, it's more towards, the 5-ish type of number. And basically, it's, the dominant silverback, and then usually females and young. And then young males are called blackbacks. All male gorillas eventually become silverbacks. The silver starts coming in when you are 10 to 13 years of age. And the older you get, the more silver you develop. And if you get old enough, the silver actually starts turning whitish, okay? When a young male gorilla, you can only have one silverback in a troop, breeding family troop, because otherwise the silverbacks, they'll fight over the females. So for a young male gorilla, when he's between 10 and 13, he's going to leave his family troop. Now, at this stage of his life, he's not fully grown. So what he does is he goes and he looks for a bunch of other bachelors and joins what is called a bachelor troop. Now, he's not going to be fully grown until he's about 16, okay, size-wise, but he'll still bulk up a little bit more in the coming years. What you see in the lower picture there is a bachelor troop, and you can see we've got 3 silverbacks there. So you'll stay in that bachelor troop for protection. Basically, sometime in your mid-20s or so, as an individual, you will decide to leave the troop, and you'll go off on your own, and you'll look for young adolescent females who just left their birth troop. The adolescent female is going to leave the troop when she's ready to start breeding, maybe about 10-ish or so. And she's looking for an older male, somebody that's experienced, that's been around the forest, knows how to protect her and her baby. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out to you in this picture is look at the difference of the gorillas on top. They're much hairier. They're mountain gorillas, as opposed to lowland gorillas in the bottom picture, so that you can see the difference there. And they have a lot more hair because they're in the mountains. It's colder weather. Reproduction, typically first is 9, 10, 11 years of age. Gestation, again, close to humans, 8.5 months. Birth weight, 4 to 5 pounds. Twins are very rare. Mom, in this case, only going to nurse about 3 years. You're going to ride on mom's back when you're young. And then one of the things I love is the white splotch on the rump. And that serves a purpose in gorilla society. As long as a youngster has a white spot, it tells everybody in the troop that they're too young to know better of what is right to do and wrong to do in gorilla society. But when that white spot fades, okay, then you're in trouble. I was talking about gorillas one day, and I was telling this, and this mother looked down to her son and said to him, "Your white spot faded a long time ago." So, now, gorillas, sometimes when you've got an older gorilla, up in age, with a troop, he's going to get challenged. And if a younger gorilla is stronger, should challenge him, drive him off, kill him, and so forth, take over the troop. What gorillas do is they commit infanticide. They're going to kill all the nursing babies. The reason is they want mom to go back into estrus and breed with them and give them their offspring. Because as long as she's nursing, she's not going to breed. Life expectancy in the wild is in the mid-30s. Managed care plus or minus 50. The males typically on the minus side, females on the plus side. In fact, until about a year and a half ago, the oldest female in the country lived out of the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. It was over 60 when she passed away. Male gorillas, remember what I told you they eat. They're fundamentally herbivores. Low-fat, healthy diet, okay? And your doctor tells you that. Keep the weight off, eat good, healthy food. 70% of male gorillas die of heart disease. So there's actually a study trying to understand that because their DNA is 97% common with us, and will this teach us something? And the study's being done out of Emory University and the Atlanta Zoo. St. Louis Zoo is one of a number of zoos that participates in that study. They'll do blood pressure checks and take blood tests, and when the animals need it, they'll be on heart medications just like human heart medications. Gorillas fundamentally are very peaceful and calm. Their day is wake up in the morning, forage for food, eat, and take a nap. Wake up, forage for food, eat, take a nap. They do that 6 times a day. That's a gorilla's day. In the course of the day, they'll roam 3 or 4 miles in the region that they are. They don't really have a territory, but it's sort of more or less of a range, and they avoid other troops. If they hear another troop through the trees and so forth that's close by, the 2 opposing silverbacks will hoot at each other and they'll go in separate directions to avoid each other. Typically, females and young, you're going to find them sleeping up in trees. The big guy is going to be down at the base of the tree, protecting his family. And fundamentally, no lion or leopard really wants to take on, this 400 to 600 pound animal that has teeth just as big, if not bigger than yours. When the silverback dies, say of natural causes, the females are going to go look for another male to protect her and future offspring. And at this point in her life, because now she's more up in age, she's more than likely going to wind up finding a younger male. Give you an example at the San Diego Zoo. Mamba here, he was about 24 years of age. He was born originally in the wild. Jessica on the bottom, she was born in the Philadelphia Zoo. And when she was about 12, got transferred to the San Diego Zoo for breeding. And together they had 5 sons. So Memba's 12 years older, plus his life expectancy is as long. He passes away. Jessica can still breed. Oh, I never mentioned this to you. Female gorillas don't go into menopause, okay? But typically, once they get into about their mid-30s, the zoos typically don't let them breed anymore, okay? Because they're now getting past their normal lifespan in the wild, even though they live longer. So anyhow, Jessica, she still can breed. She would want to find a younger mate. So she finds Paul Don, who was born at the zoo, as her new mate. Paul Don is 9 years younger than her. So I often call Jessica a cougar. They have 29 vocalizations that they'll make. Typically, as I mentioned before, they will hoot, as you see here, and beat their chest. Now, when we imitate gorillas, we beat our chest with a closed fist. That hurts. Gorillas are smarter. They do it with an open hand, maybe a cupped hand. It actually makes a louder sound, in case you're not scared of me. Okay, standing up and doing that. Infants are known to whine and whimper, just like human infants. If the females in the troop get into a squabble, all the silverbacks to do is give them a dirty stare, and that calms everything down in the troop. If you decide to go to Africa to see gorillas, One thing you got to remember is don't stare. They teach scientists, who are out there, don't stare. Fleeting glances. That's what a gorilla does, okay? He's not a predator. He doesn't eat meat. He's a herbivore. And, when he looks briefly and then looks away. Youngsters will look and stare. They haven't learned, gorilla etiquette yet. But when you grow up, you don't stare. Sometimes, a scientist may have forgot, he's seeing something really interesting, he's staring, and the gorilla gets mad. And he's going to get up on his hind legs, beat his chest, scream, show you his big teeth as you see here, and he's going to charge. Now, what you don't do is don't run away, because if you run away, he really thinks you had evil in your heart. What you're going to do is grab some leaves, stick them in your mouth, show him that you're a herbivore like he is, okay? And if you don't want to stand there because your knees are too weak, lie face down on the ground. Now he's going to charge, and he'll stop a few inches from your face. If you don't die of a heart attack, you will need new underwear, but you will never again forget, do not stare. Oh, I guess I already told you this, about male gorillas over 70% over age 30. So I've covered this. And you can see they have a very, very healthy diet with leaves, stems, fruits, seeds, nuts, and so forth. The International Union for the Conservation of Nature classifies them as critically endangered with declining populations. Again, humans are the main predators. They mainly suffer from habitat loss, deforestation. A lot of it is illegal logging, mining. When they do these, they make roads into the forest. That then exposes the animals to diseases that they have no immunities for. And they come down and contract and die very easily of human diseases, Ebola, hepatitis A, polio, tuberculosis, and tapeworms. They're also hunted for bushmeat and because of civil wars. The rebels in the hills, if the army's closing in, they start killing guerrillas so that the army backs off because they know the guerrillas are important to the government. They like ecotourism. So they are in a lot of trouble. Again, there is hope with all of our help. The Great Ape Survival Partnership was created by UNESCO, which involves governments and nonprofits, non-governmental organizations, to set up reserves and try to enact laws in these different countries, and have gotten countries to do that. I've given you some examples here in northern Cameroon, the Limbi Wildlife Center, Gorilla Guardian Club of the Bonobo Forest. What the San Diego Zoo did was it recruited people in the 3 villages that surround the Igbo forest. Not only they teach the people about gorillas and how to live with them peacefully and so forth, but then recruited them to work basically as forest rangers to help protect them and keep poachers out. So accredited zoos do a lot of work supporting these. I know the St. Louis Zoo does support a project in the Democratic Republic of Congo also for protecting these guys. What you can do when you go shopping, you want help right here from St. Louis, okay? When you go shopping and you're buying paper products, whether it's tissue paper, paper for your copier, Kleenex, whatever, napkins, look for the Forest Stewardship Council symbol on the packaging. It's a little tree with 3 initials, FSC. And this tells you that the manufacturer was certified as not taking trees from where animals are endangered, actually doing sustainable harvesting of trees, replanting. So definitely support the zoo. Favorite reads, In the Kingdom of Gorillas, and Among the Great Apes. Now, the latter book covers all 4 great apes, but it has a great section on gorillas, so I highly recommend both of those books. I see I'm going over. Do you want me to continue? Yeah, okay, I will continue. I apologize, I'm enthusiastic about these animals, and I guess I told too many stories. Okay, so bonobos. Scientists traced their origins back about 1.5 million, 2 million years ago when the Congo River formed. Chimpanzees and bonobos used to be one species. When the river formed, the animals that got caught on the north side became what we now call chimpanzees. It's a male-led society. The animals on the south side of the river became what we know as bonobos. It's a female-led society. Remember, apes don't swim, so nobody crosses the river. So they've stayed completely as two separate species, developed out. The bonobos, so as you see on this map, the red area, this is south, this is the Congo River here, they're south of it, the chimps are on the opposite side. So that's the range, and that is probably one of the, that's deep in the center of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is one of the most lawless areas. Nobody has a true population. It's estimated to be about 30,000. There are 2 small sanctuaries on the fringe of that range, and based on the density of population in those sanctuaries, scientists project out, and 30,000 for such a large area is nothing. To show you a picture comparing bonobos and chimpanzees, bonobo basically has a more slender build, maybe weighs a few pounds less, and until the early mid-1930s were considered pygmy chimps, but they're truly a separate species. Their physical attributes: males about 85 pounds, females 70, 2.5 feet tall. They typically are going to knuckle walk, okay, on all fours, but they can walk upright like human beings. They do that better than any other animal, and for a number of reasons. There is a more central opening in the skull for the spinal cord than it is for chimpanzees. They have larger feet than chimpanzees, heavier thigh bones, heavier leg muscles than chimpanzees, so it enables them to be erect. You typically will see them being erect like that when they're carrying things in their hands. The other thing unique for them is that the proportions of their legs and arms to their torso is identical with human beings. Like us, they've got fingerprints, they part their hair in the middle, same teeth set up as we do. Their commonality of their DNA is 98.7 with us. The brain neuron pattern, okay, for them is the most similar to humans of any animal, and that enables them to have very good social awareness and empathy. They typically live in just a family troop. And let me explain how that works and the transition. Basically, it's matriarchal. It's typically led by the oldest females. Now, a lot of times when you talk about matriarchal setups, like elephants, when I talked about that, the females stay with the herd and the males leave. In this case, the males stay with the troop, okay, and the females leave. Now, the male's rank in the troop corresponds to his mother's rank in the troop. When his mother dies, his rank and standing in the troop goes to the bottom of the ladder. Females lead the troop at sexual maturity, and they go off and they look for another troop. Bonding in the troop is important. Bonding doesn't occur, though, completely occur until she's had a baby in that new troop that she's going into. Now, they will fight, okay, but nobody gets killed. They're most famously known for making up. They will make up just with a simple handshake, like a human being. They'll make up with mutual grooming, but they're most famously known for make-up sex. And I've been there some days when I thought they really had a big Donnybrook the night before. Gestation, 8 months, 2 to 3 pounds, nurse 4 to 5 years, interbirth interval about 4 to 6. There's no infanticide in this species of apes, contrary to all the other species, no infanticide. Reason being, when the female is going to breed, she breeds with all the males in the troop. So nobody knows who offspring it is, and everybody helps take care. Okay? And then, because she's made it with all the older women's sons, great daughter-in-law, okay? And she's given us a granddaughter, a grandson. So Average life expectancy is early 30s and go to 50. It's primarily going to be in managed care. They're peaceful and calm. They are active in the day. They spend equal amounts of times both on the ground and up in trees. They are omnivores. They're going to eat a lot of fruits and leaves, some insects, and they'll also go after some small vertebrates. They typically like to build nests near fruit trees, so you've got breakfast in the morning, and they're extremely playful. They'll play games just like human kids play. They'll play King of the Mountain, they'll play tag, keep away, all sorts of things like that. Grooming and sexual behavior are important social dynamics, and it forges strong bonds. Very empathetic. They will share food with strangers that aren't part of the troop. Okay? If somebody is being picked on in the troop, somebody usually stands up for them. Okay? So it doesn't get out of hand. And you can see here they can be quite affectionate. They're also the only species that has sex face to face like humans. Okay? Everybody else, it's from the rear. Good at gestures, both hand and facial, very good with vocalizations, much better than chimpanzees. IUCN classifies them as endangered. Again, humans are the main predator, habitat loss, slash and burn, political instability. The same things I've been mentioning before. Additionally, faux medicine, where not only they go into legal pet trade, but they're slaughtered and then body parts sold as cures for things. All animal body parts, if you been here before, you heard me say this, are made of the same materials as human beings. They're just different shapes, forms, sizes, and colors as adaptations for your environment. They cure nothing. Plants cure stuff, not animal body parts. There is hope. The fauna and timber reserves are the two reserves I mentioned to you on the edge of the area. Lola Bonobo is a rehab center for rescue ones, just like what I showed you for the orangutans. Scientists have found it important to educate the children so attitudes change in the next generation, and to educate civil servants about the need to protect these animals. Accredited zoos like St. Louis supports these type of things, even though we don't have bonobos there. I said before, St. Louis does these kind of projects for chimpanzees in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So please support the zoo. Favorite read, Bonobo the Forgotten Ape. Dr. Franz de Waal, he's a noted primatologist. I apologize for being late. Any questions? One or two? No?
Len, that was a wonderful, wonderful talk. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Learned so much. Anyone, do we have any questions here? We'll pass the mic quick. Anybody? Okay, who votes that we ask Len to return?
Thank you. Next time.
The good news is he's scheduled to come back.
Yes. Next time is Monday, August 19th. We're going to be covering 4 animals from Australia. Koalas, Tasmanian devils, red kangaroos, and a laughing kookaburra. So thank you again, and have a good day, mate.